And today we're going to keep it going with part 3 of our history and self-care, and how you can look at certain aspects of your own history and make adjustments so that your future through your self-care can even be better. Hey, welcome to another video. Welcome to our channel. This is the Bojoul channel, the home of self-care, wellness, and any and everything that will help you to become a better version of you. And we're on our series about history and self-care. So we started talking about ancient ruins and what that means for our self-care. And we continued yesterday with series 2. And today we're going to keep it going with part 3 of our history and self-care, and how you can look at certain aspects of your own history and make adjustments so that your future through your self-care can even be better. The thing about self-care that we continue to mention on this channel is that self-care is not one-sided. It's not one-dimensional. It has so much depth, so many layers. And what we try to do on this channel is effectively kind of reach these different layers to allow you to kind of reconsider some of the things or some of the patterns in your life that you may not even be aware of, that's affecting your self-care journey. So today we're going to talk about the history of conflict resolution. How do you resolve conflict? And it matters so much because when you think about our conflict resolution styles, a lot of times our conflict resolution are inherited patterns. We saw how conflict was handled in our homes. As children, we saw how we remember how we dealt with conflict resolution with our siblings, our family members, our co-workers. And this pattern, it just continues to repeat itself. And for the sake of this conversation, I want to challenge you to question the origin of your self-care, your conflict resolution. I want you to challenge the origin of it and reflect on it. So one, like I said, a lot of it may be inherited patterns. When you honestly sit back and you look at how conflict was resolved in your own home or wherever you grew up at, was it effective? How did it make you feel? And when you analyze your own conflict resolution style, how much of your current style has been pulled from what you had seen growing up or what you had modeled before you? Why this is so important is because in our self-care journey, relationship is a big part of our journey. And oftentimes, we don't really stop to reflect how we are dealing with situations because we've always did it that way. And this conversation, I want to just touch on a few different reasons why you have to re-examine, why you should re-examine your self-care resolution style. Your conflict resolution style. You have to re-examine that because it affects your self-care directly. When you, every day, we don't live in this world alone. No man is an island unto himself. John Donne, right? We all have to interact. We are all somehow connected to another in some way, shape, or form, right? And in trying to focus on ourselves, our self-care journey, it's very difficult to progress in that journey when the way we resolve conflict is modeled after a system that no longer works for your lifestyle. And we haven't really stopped to reflect on that to even want to make adjustments. So if I sit down and I say, hey, I want to look at my self-care journey, and in every area, self-care, if you're looking at the entire picture of it, if you take a step back and you're looking at it from a larger scope of things, the way you deal with individuals, the way you resolve conflict will directly impact your self-care, because that goes right in the pocket of mental wellness, stress. When you see these different patterns, are they patterns that were effective for you when they were even being used in your own home? Can you sit back and really think back? Sometimes you may need to take a piece of paper and just write down the pros and cons of your conflict resolution style. And if you have more cons than pros, then you start making another list how you can make some adjustments. Another reason why it's so important for you to analyze your conflict resolution style is because you want to manage the effectiveness of it. Was it even effective? Just because somebody dealt with you or reprimanded you or dealt with conflict in a certain way doesn't mean that it was effective. Was it effective? The way that you deal with conflict, is it really effective? Does it cause people to shun you and kind of put the scarlet letter over you and say, listen, I'm not dealing with her? You know, there are some people that you see them coming and you have an issue. You don't even want to say anything to them because you already know that whenever you come to them with anything, it's going to be some type of a blowback. It's not a welcoming environment where you can go and approach them. They're not approachable. That you could say, hey, this is an issue. And you know, when you start to look at yourself, so that's another thing. It's about this introspection that we have to do when you're doing conflict resolution. It's very, very, very important. And it's very difficult for a lot of us to even look at ourselves in that type of way, because we're so used to peering outside at other people that looking within and seeing maybe the way I've been handling conflict has not been the best. Maybe that's why people don't really want to say anything to me, because of the way I respond. And you got, see, when I had done my own introspection, I've always asked myself, what is my goal from this conversation? What do I want to, what is my final goal? What do I want to have resolved in this conversation? And I have had to readjust a lot of my tone, my body verbiage, a lot of things that we have adopted, and you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. I remember being in a certain employment, and I remember one of my managers, when she used to just come to you, when she used to approach you, it was very offensive. She never even opened her mouth. It's just the way she came. It was this aggressive manner. And so just from that, all of us who worked there always was on the defense immediately. You already defensive because of the way. And that's what I'm saying. When you're looking at your conflict resolution style, you're looking at every aspect and being honest with yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, maybe I could do this differently. Because at the end of the day, what is it that we all want? You want it to be effective. Whatever it is that you're approaching a person with, you want them to say, hey, okay, I understand what she's saying. I get it. But if they can't even get past your words and your delivery style, everything you're saying is going to be a waste. So that's very important. Another reason why it's important in terms of self-care to look at your conflict resolution style is it gives you an opportunity for you to grow. When you have to look at yourself and make adjustments, when you look at yourself and you say, oh, maybe that's not so cool. Maybe that's not the best way that I could have done that. It makes you handle and readjust some of your ways of being. And that, all that does is encourages personal growth. You are the better person at the end. You see yourself becoming something better. Looking at yourself, it may be painful, but at the end of the day, once you do it and you make those type of adjustments, you're better for it. Another reason why looking at conflict resolution and your style and what you use is so important is because you need to ascertain how much of this is from my culture. You know, some cultures, everybody have their own cultural style. And certain cultures, they just deal with things a certain way. That's just culturally across the board. And that comes into the family, that comes into every place you are. And maybe that's not working anymore. Maybe I need to take a step back and say, I didn't even like it when someone used that style on me. So maybe, and this is wisdom. It's wisdom when you can look at something and say, that wasn't really effective on me. So maybe let me see where I could tweak it, right? And still have my point come across more clearly and it's able to be received more easily. That's all in communication in general. Your whole idea is for your central point to be communicated in a way that whoever you're speaking to can receive it. I remember growing up in school, my teacher used to always say in communication, you can throw a ball or you could toss a ball. You could throw it or you could toss it. And the likelihood of a person catching the ball and not being harmed or not feeling violated in any way is more like a toss instead of a throw. You do not want your central idea or your central point of the conversation to be skewed because of your delivery style. And I must admit, it's been many times in my life that I had not taken that into consideration. And I've been so emotional and so offended that the way I even approached a person, it was ghastly. Like no one is listening to me. So therefore, my whole point, my whole agenda is ineffective from the beginning. So until I was able to look at myself and say, hey, that ain't good. Okay. One of the things that I've learned in conflict resolution is never to approach a subject or a situation when your emotions are high. Whether your emotions are high as far as you're super, super excited or happy, or you're super, super mad, or sad. Whenever your emotions are at any type of extreme, I have found that it's best to kind of let them balance out before you even approach any topic. Because everything going forward is going to come from that place of that emotional, whatever that emotional place that you're in at that moment. And so taking the time to just kind of sit back. That's the thing, too, about personal growth. You got to sit back and say, you know what? Now is not even the time. Now is not even the time. I used to be so upset that it was always the time because I just need to get it off of me instead of letting myself decompress and then approach the subject or approach whatever it is that I need to approach at the time. And lastly, but not least, another reason to analyze and reevaluate your conflict resolution style is it changes relationship dynamics. When you're depending on the relationship that you're in, it could be with a child with a parent. It could be a husband with a wife. It could be a friend with a friend. It could be just a family member. When you are that person who are very aggressive and are very abrasive in your conflict resolution style, no one wants to deal with you. And the relationship dynamics are always off. Like I said before, they're like, I'd rather not. It'll be so much going on underneath your nose. No one wants to approach you. Nobody. So you will find out on the back end some other things that's been going on because everybody's kind of fearful, or they have this trepidation of approaching you because they don't want the drama. They don't want the smoke. And it's like, sometimes we don't realize that is not something that we want. I remember I was at church once, and my pastor, he said, you can be a fragrance or you can be an odor. You have to make a choice. When you come around, there's going to be some type of a scent, but are you a fragrance or are you an odor? And it all depends on how you are. Like, you can only fix you. You can't fix anybody else. And a lot of times I've found in my own life, once I start adjusting me and my own perspective and the way I'm looking at certain things, it's really not even that deep. And you can't make a person do anything. It's hard enough to make yourself do the things that you're supposed to do, let alone try to make somebody else do something. If you focus on yourself, you're looking at your conflict resolution style and saying, how am I playing a part in maybe the energy that's in this room? You know, it's amazing to me how, you know, we're in this culture where everybody talks about energy, and it's very important. And people are like, no, I don't like that energy, and I don't like this energy over here, and I don't like that energy. But a lot of times you have not considered, or you have not factored in what part of that energy convolution that you don't like that you have contributed to. Right? That's the real conversation. A lot of, you know, when you're in a space, everybody contributes to the energy that's there. But what part do you play in that energy that you don't even like? You could be the culprit. And that's where that growth and that personal growth come in, to say, let me look at myself. Let me see if it's really me. Seriously. Let me see if it's me. Maybe it's me coming in here with this thinking. Maybe it's me. And until you can even consider it possibility of it being you, it's a lot of growth that you have to do. And your conflict resolution style will continue to impact your relationships, your self-care journey negatively. It will continue to do that until you begin to say, hey, I need to look at me. I got to look at me. Self-care, the care of self, right? Until I look at me. I always say my personal strategy for my own self is I look at what God says about me, and I see how well I'm lining up with that. When I'm off course with that, I know that I have a lot of adjusting to do. That's my personal style, because that's my basis. If he's saying this is how I should be, and this is who I am, and this is what I am, and I see myself in the light of what he's telling me, and I'm not lining up, that means I have some adjusting to do. And it's gonna affect every relationship, everything, every place I go, every person I'm around is gonna affect that relationship. It takes a mature mind, and you have to be ready for it. If you're at a place where you still are not owning up to anything that you do, or it's no way that you can't even fathom the idea of you being the issue or you being the problem, or maybe my conflict resolution style is horrible, your self-care journey is always going to go off the rails because it's never you. The care of self journey is about you, looking at you. And I found that in regards to history, we repeat ourselves. History repeats itself, and we do it even inadvertently when we follow the patterns of our families, and we just doing it because that's just what we know. We haven't even stopped to say, this is the style that I'm using, and I want to reinvent. I want to reimagine my style and how it can be more effective, and I can be more pleasant with those that I encounter. So yeah, that's it for today. Just understanding that our history, especially as it relates to our conflict resolution methodology, we have to readjust it. It has to be readjusted, tweaked, because it's going to impact everything that you're doing with your own journey. I thank you so much for listening today. This is the Bojoul channel. It's all about you. It really is. It's really all about you. Even when we got to ask the hard questions and we got to make the hard calls on ourselves, that's all about growth. When you start doing that, you know you're growing. You know you're moving past where you are. And that's a great feeling. Thank you for joining us. And remember that self-care is the best care. Later.